welcome to Genre Lectures in Fiction, Part 2, Forms of Fiction. This is Professor Valeri. In this video, we're going to talk about all the different types of fiction that are out there today, particularly forms that are distinguished not only by the length, but also the kind of content that they have. The first, the one that everybody is familiar with, is of course the novel. But we also have a thing called the novella, which is usually around 100-120 pages long, much shorter than a novel, but also considerably longer than a short story. Lately, it's become fashionable also to have chapbooks. These are usually 40 to 50 pages long, and they may contain one very long story, or occasionally a bunch of really short stories. Then, of course, we have the traditional short story, the kind that we want to publish in a literary magazine. And finally, we have a tiny little thing, a tiny story called flash fiction. There are some flash fiction so short that they're only 25 words long, and they're getting shorter. But for this particular class, we're just going to focus on the short story. We have enough time in the semester to cover this reasonably well, and also, who knows, you might be able to publish it either in the school publication or in one of the many literary journals that are out there, in print and online. So, before we go to short story, let's look at what the other forms do so that we can see what the difference is. First is the novel. The novel, because it's much longer, allows the writer a lot of freedom, especially when it comes to setting. It's not unusual for a novel to take place in various different locations, sometimes in different nations, in different cultures, and yes, even in the sci-fi genre, in different worlds. Because you have a lot of space in the novel, the writer has time to instruct the reader about the kind of world he or she will be inhabiting. For the same reason, the novel also have quite a wide cast of character. It's not unusual to have a novel that has 2, 3, even 4 different point of views, sometimes even more. And because you have so many point of view characters, you usually have a much more intricate plot system than in a short story. So you will have usually one main plot that drives the entire novel, and let's say that's a murder plot or something like the coming-of-age story, but there's usually at least one subplot, usually even more than that. So while we follow a murder plot, we may watch the detective fall in love with somebody, either one of the victims or a criminal. Or we may follow a father-son plot, or both. So let's see by contrast what the novella can do. Well, instead of the sprawling, really galaxy-wide setting of the novel, the novella has to focus on a smaller setting. Maybe a small town, or just a neighborhood within that small town. And again, there is no room to have the wide cast of characters that we have in the novel, so the novella usually will focus on one character, maybe 2. Though there will be other characters in the story interacting with these 2 main characters, only 2 main characters will usually have a real plot line. And that's why, in a novella plot, rather than having the murder plot, the romance plot, and all the different subplots that you can have in a novel, you usually follow just one simple plot involving maybe 1 or 2 characters. Well, what about the short story then? Well, let's see. Again, we can't possibly have in less than 10 pages the kind of sprawling setting that you'd expect to see in a novel. We don't really even have time to do a whole town. So a short story may take place usually in one very select setting. It could be even just a bedroom or somebody's backyard. And again, we certainly don't have time for the whole cast of characters that we would be able to develop as novelists, so we really kind of should concentrate on only one character. Seldom does a short story have more than that, because a short story focuses on a single life-changing event, and a single life-changing event of one character. Something like this. So, since in this class we're going to be focusing on short stories only, you'll have to choose one character in a limited setting who has one single life-changing event. And that's it for forums, and I'll see you in the next video.